Hello, alpha males. Welcome. Welcome back if you're part of the tribe, a salty member of the Alpha Male Podcast. Welcome, new listeners. The podcast where we talk about being an alpha male the right way, modeled after the one who made us in his image, strong, dominant, and in control. And we don't apologize for it. Today, I think it's going to be a really good episode, especially if you want to share this with somebody. I think this topic will appeal to most men. Before we roll into the bio, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review of the podcast. Like I said, this one should appeal to most men, so please share this if you think it will benefit somebody. If you want to skip the bio, skip to around 3 minutes and 45 seconds after it starts. First and foremost, I am a servant of God, preacher, a fisher of men. God is number one in my life, and everything that I do in this podcast is no different, and I don't apologize for that. A little bit about me in the background. I grew up, I guess what you would consider a heathen. Didn't grow up a Christian, but I grew up in the southeastern United States, what most would consider very poor. Hunting and fishing and shooting. Joined the Marine Corps at 17, did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. After my combat tours in Iraq, I was an urban warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. I also served in law enforcement for several years in LAPD. I worked patrol assignments and more specialized assignments, where by God's grace, He got me through some nasty places in this world of war zones and some of the nastiest streets in the country. Not because I am better, because God chose to have mercy on me and had a purpose for me, and I'm thankful for that. After my time in law enforcement, I was a private contractor for federal government, for a 3-letter government agency I won't specify, doing private contracting work. I'm very much involved in guns and gunfighting. I also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. I should say my primary MOS is in both branches of the military or infantry, as of one sort or another. Specialized infantry in the Marine Corps and an MOS that no longer exists. I started competition shooting even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I won my first gold medal even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I've been blessed by God with the talents He's given me to win more shooting competitions than I can remember. I've won most of my competitions in rifle and pistol, but I've also competed in archery and shotgun and even muzzleloader, knife throwing, hatchet throwing. I've competed in all that. I've also been a professional big game hunter and guide. Like I said, I grew up hunting and fishing and shooting. I've done it to put meat on the table because I like to put food on the table with the talents God's given me. I don't apologize for that. I've done it as a professional hunter and guide. I've slain all manner of beast and guided for all manner of beast. Bear and wolf and elk and deer, mule deer, whitetail deer. I've slain ram and fallow deer and countless animals. And I don't apologize for that either. FBI certified, firearms instructor, NRA, and a bunch of other 3-letter government agency certifications. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. Psalm 144. I've been blessed to be the commander of a tactical team, an SRT, special response team, in a large metropolitan area, where our primary job was to stop active shooters. But again, first and foremost, I'm a servant of God, called by God to share the good news, preacher, a fisher of men. With that, we will roll into the day's topic. Now, real quick, I didn't mention in the bio because it's normally not germane, but I did receive a wartime commendation for a job well done on base security and main entry and access denial at a large military base in Iraq. I was a non-commissioned officer in the Marine Corps. I was also employed by the United States government, a 3-letter government agency I won't specify, to train private contractors, mercenaries, whatever you want to call them, to protect some of the most secure things our government has. That's all I'm going to say about that. That's as specific as I'm going to get about that. With that, let's get into today's topic: home hardening and home security. Now, where do you suppose we get started on that? Guns? That'd be fun. But no, that's not where we're going to start. We're going to start with prevention, making your home, your dwelling, a hard target. You see oftentimes criminals, burglars, pilferers, thieves, they look for the lowest hanging fruit. They look for the easiest target. So don't be that target. One easy thing is lighting, making your house well lit. Something as cheap and inexpensive as they are today as motion lights, even, solar powered motion lights. If they're casing houses to break into and yours has motion lights and somebody else has a nice dark driveway they can get right up to the window, to which do you think they'll go if they're looking for the easiest one? So lighting, so simple. You might be thinking alarm system, but as you heard my bio, I was a police officer for a long time. Let me tell you the truth about alarm systems and how they work in general. I'm not going to say every alarm works like this, but pretty much everyone I've ever encountered works like this. You have an alarm company that you pay a subscription to or whatever. That alarm company's in Georgia or New Delhi or wherever. The alarm gets set off. That alarm company gets notified. That alarm company calls the local police dispatch. The local police dispatch looks for an available police car if there is one. They dispatch that car to your location. Keep in mind that car may not be the closest one to your house. This process on a fast day, I would say, takes 15 minutes. And think about that in the context of what we're talking about. I'm not telling you not to get an alarm, but I'm telling you to consider that and don't rely on that. Don't think that that's a fail-safe. Even if the cop was the street next to you, parked, very vigilant. Somebody could be breaking into your house for 15 minutes before he'd ever know about it because he has no way of knowing about it. That alarm company has to get contacted. They have to contact his dispatch, and they have to send him over there. Think about the amount of damage somebody could do to your home, or even worse, you or your loved ones, in 15 minutes. One thing I will recommend that's a fraction of the cost and as effective in my opinion, is just get alarm signs. Put them in your window, put them in your front yard. Like I said, make your home a harder target. If a thief has to pick between a house that he thinks has an alarm and a house that he thinks has no alarm, all other things being equal, he'll pick the one that doesn't have the alarm. So just the alarm signs themselves, you can buy just alarm signs. I don't think that I ever responded to a call of an alarm going off or somebody had broken in and we got an alarm call that we'd ever got there and caught the person. Not because we didn't want to, just because it doesn't take very long to break in somewhere and get in and get out. So keep that in mind. I'm not telling you not to get an alarm. I'm just telling you be aware of what they do and don't do and how they work. Like I said, make your home a hard target. Those alarm signs, they're a fraction of the cost, and they're certainly not going to hurt. Here's a big one you may not think about talking about making your home a hard target. Trash management. If you just had a bonus check from your job, or you got a nice present, let's say, for instance, you got a big screen TV. Don't leave the box for that big screen TV on the curb, or somebody walking down the street can see that you just got a big screen TV. Put it in your garage or in your house, and then next time you're driving, drive it somewhere to a dumpster and throw it away. Don't leave it out by the curb for 2 days waiting for the trash to pick it up. Just kind of advertising, hey, look at me, I'm affluent, I have a bunch of nice stuff that you can come and take. So think about trash management. Think about being discreet. Again, criminals often look for low-hanging fruit. They see something that they can take and sell quickly or that's worth a lot of money, and they think that it's in your house. That can certainly make you a more desirable target in their eyes. Also, privacy. Things like fences, things like keeping your curtains closed at night. Again, if you're inside watching that big screen TV and you have that big screen TV on and blaring and everybody walking by can see it, then they know. They know that you have that big screen TV, and that's just one example because it's an easy, obvious one, but that could be anything. If you have an alley that runs behind your house, or you have a common area that runs between you or your neighbor's house or behind your house, what do people see when they walk back there and look over your fence? Think about that. This one also may not occur to you, but like we said, make your house a harder target. Think about things that you plant. Again, make your house a hard target. Plant things even like a rose bush with a lot of thorns underneath every single window around the side and back of your house. If a thief is going to try and climb into a window to break in, are they going to go to one that they can just hop in or one that's got a bunch of thorns growing around it? So things like rose bushes, Osage orange, the old classic hedgerows and things like that. When you're thinking about planting things, give that some consideration. I'm not telling you to dig a moat around your house and put alligators in it, but think about that, just making it a little bit harder target. While we're talking about windows, a real easy thing to do is just cut wooden dowels and lay them in your windows so they're not so easy to slide open. Even if they have locks, if the lock gets defeated and that's not hard, it makes it even harder. Yeah, they can still break out the window, but they may go somewhere else knowing that breaking out a window alerts things and causes noise. Talking about the back and perimeter of your property, a real easy way to do, and we did this in Iraq, a real easy thing to do. It's pretty effective. All it takes is some clear fishing string that you probably have laying around your house, or go to Walmart and get it for $2, and an empty soda can and some rocks. If you have an area in the back of your house that is easy access to your property but you almost never use, or you do use it but you think somebody may be casing your property or may be trying to break in, or you live in an environment like we did a year ago where looting and rioting was a thing, more so than normal, or there's just been some police shooting in your area and people are rioting, you want to be alerted if somebody comes that way, just take a piece of clear fishing string, lay it across that area, run it to the tab in an empty soda can and put a couple of rocks in it. You can run it from like a foot off the ground on your fence to a stick and have the can suspended so it's just touching the ground so the wind doesn't drive you crazy blowing the rocks around. But as soon as somebody touches that or kicks it, it's super loud. Rocks in a soda can are ridiculously annoyingly loud. So that's a cheap, easy way to just know that somebody is where they're not supposed to be. In your imagination, think of a good way to do that. Like I said, run it a foot off the ground on your wire fence and just put a stake in the ground, or put a little staple in a tree with the string hanging down with the rocks in the can, so when somebody hits it, it goes flying off the staple and across the yard. Super simple, super effective. There's a lot of ways to do this on a door. Let's say you have like a garage that you don't go into often and you want to know if somebody goes in there. Similar thing, just rig it up some kind of way so that when they open that door, the string breaks and the can falls. Super loud. Now let's talk about something a little bit scarier, home invasions. Home invasions are a real thing. That's where somebody breaks in when you're home. Just go look up the stats for how many house fires there are in America in a year and how many home invasions there are in a year. And I guess you could be listening somewhere other than America. But look that up, the stats on home invasions versus fires. Nobody would call you paranoid for having a fire extinguisher by the stove. Well, let's talk about people coming to the door. Number one, demeanor. Not unheard of when I was a cop to get calls of people going around the neighborhood posing as delivery people, posing as this, posing as that, posing as a utility checker. They could pose as any number of things, a census taker, somebody from your power company, or just somebody who pretends to be lost or pretends to be at the wrong house knowing somebody that's there. And a lot of that times that could be just exactly what it is, but sometimes it's not. So number one, just your demeanor. Don't be afraid to be rude. Don't answer any personal questions like how many people live here, who's at home. Trust your gut and don't be afraid to be firm and say, no, you can't come in. No, you can't come in. I'm closing the door, stepping back, and calling the police. No, you can't come in. I've already called the police. If you step through that door, it may very well be the last door you ever step through. And say it like you mean it. If somebody's a good person and they're on the up and up, doing that is not going to cause them to be a burglar or a rapist or a murderer. Somebody that is one of those things may make them think twice. This person's not an easy target. While we're talking about the front door, you may want to think about if you have an old pair of work boots, the biggest pair of dirtiest work boots that you have, leaving them in front of the front door if they're an old pair you don't care about, or if you have one of those little side windows by the front door where people can look in and see a little bit, putting those big dirty work boots. Or if you don't have a pair, go to Goodwill and buy the biggest size 13 giant dirty work boots you can. If you're not there, they look in and say, oh, there's a big dude that lives here. Maybe this house is not an easy target. You could do the same thing with a big giant dog collar, like the biggest, fattest dog collar you can find, even if you don't have a dog. Thinking you have a big dog may make you a harder target. Talking about by the front door, I would encourage all men to be armed and carry a sword if you feel so called to do so, but I don't think we're going to talk about that in this episode. But you can have something by the door like a giant can of pepper spray. Like the little ones you take running or have in your car, have in your pocket. Like a big freaking can of pepper spray. You can use on one person or a group of people if there is a big, large crowd. Like I said, if there is looting and rioting or things like that. If you ask them to leave and they don't, and you spray a giant fog of it outside your door and just close the door. Something more effective than just the little cans you have to actually hit somebody with. I guess a side tip for that, if you do have to use pepper spray and it's one of the ones you have to actually spray on somebody, don't aim for the head. People are good at moving their head out of the way of things. It's a reflex. Aim for the center of mass. Aim for the center of the chest. I speak of this from experience of being a cop and doing this. Aim for the center of the chest. Once you hit them in the chest, then move up to their neck and head. Even if you just hit them in the center of the chest, it will generally splash up and get in their eyes. At least have some effect. Even if they get it on their chest, on their clothes, it will be distracting and have an effect. If you hit them in the chest, like I said, you can move up and trail it up to their head and their eyes. If you aim for their head and they're moving and bobbing all around, you may very likely miss altogether. But a big can of spray by the door. Other things you can keep by the door that in any country, in any environment, at a hotel, that probably wouldn't raise any eyebrows, no matter where you are, a walking stick. A walking stick that you think could double as a weapon, not like one of those thin aluminum ones. Like a good walking stick. What could anybody say to that? I like to go for walks. I have a walking stick in case the weather's bad, in case it's icy. I keep a walking stick by the door. This person attempted to make entry, and I hit him with the walking stick because that's what I had right in front of me. Be tactical about this. Keep it somewhere where you can see it and they can't from the outside. But you can grab it and use it, and they can't see it. They don't know that it's there to grab it and use it. Talking about anywhere you go, here's one for traveling. If you're going to go to a hotel, a motel, whatever, a resort, if you get to pick, try and pick somewhere on the second floor. Like I said, try not to be the easiest target. It's easy to break in somewhere and run away on the first floor. It gets the most foot traffic. It's the most people walking by. The reason I say the second floor is if somebody is breaking in or there's a fire or something else, you can, in general, jump out of a second-story window and not be super injured. The higher you get from that, the more risk you run of being injured or dying if you have to jump out of a window. But second story, a little bit harder to get in and out of, a little bit harder for people to get to your room and from your room. Still, if you have to get out another way, if somebody's at the front door trying to break in, you can get out another way, in general. If you have a choice and you're traveling, try and stay on the second floor. One more tip for if you're not home and somebody breaks in. We have this human tendency to hide the things we value the most in our master bedroom and the place where we sleep and the place that's close to us. Think about where your wife's jewelry box is, or think about where you keep your valuables or your spare things. Is that where you keep your stuff, close to your bed, close to where you are all the time? Your top drawer of your dresser? Well, burglars know that. The good ones do anyway. Don't So don't keep your most valuable stuff there. Put it in the guest bedroom closet or somewhere like that. Again, don't be low-hanging fruit. If somebody really wants to find it, they probably can. But somebody that's doing a snatch and grab, somebody who wants to be in and out in a few minutes, because they know how long it generally takes cops to show up, they may not find your stuff that is most valuable to you. So just another tip to keep in mind. Perhaps we will do a whole episode. If you guys like this, we'll do a whole episode on what I think are some of the most effective tools you should have, which would be a firearm and a dog. If you guys want that, let me know, comment, leave a review of the podcast, and put it in the review. That way me and everybody else can see it. Get a hold of me at goodshepherdtraining.com. If that's something you want a whole episode on, maybe we'll do that. But again, this episode, I want you to be able to share with anybody. People that aren't gun people that don't carry a sword, people that, live in Sweden and maybe can't have a shotgun by the door. I don't know. Maybe they can. If you guys like this, you want an episode on guns and dogs for property security, home security, or you want one on personal protection, like for you when you're out and about, or your wife when she's out and about, things like that. Again, let me know, comment, leave it in a review of the podcast. Go to goodshepherdtraining.com. On that note, if you like this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. If you like this podcast, and we also like Gunfighter Life, and if you care about the important stuff, Simple Man Sermons, the preachings of a simple man called by God to share the good news of Jesus Christ. If you one-stop shop for that and to see pictures and things like that and contact me, goodshepherdtraining.com. This whole episode has kind of been tactical tips, but I'm going to give you what I think is the most important part of this episode is a tactical tip for the day. Next time you're going home, next time you're walking down your street, look at your house like a criminal. Look at your house like a burglar, like a rapist, like a nefarious person, an evil person. Make no mistake. Evil is a real thing. Evil exists in this world. There are evil people that want to do evil things. Think about if you were one of those people walking down your street. Is your house an easy target or a hard target? If you were going to break into your house, what would be the easiest way to break into your house? Again, think like a criminal. What's the easiest way to break into your house? What's the way to break into your house where nobody would even see it or know about it? And then correct that, harden that thing. Plant some Osage orange under that window. Maybe put a deadbolt on that door. The things we talked about today, how do they apply? Some may not apply to you at all. Some may. Think about them. But look at your house like you have ill intent. And just think about that. It's one of the things I would do when I was a commander of a tactical team where our job was to stop active shooters. In the briefings we would have, I would sit them down and say, okay, we have this, not theoretical, we would actually have these, like we have this big event with thousands of people tonight. Or we have this A-list celebrity that we're trying to protect. You're an active shooter. Your objective is to hurt as many people as possible at this event. How do you do that? How do you enter? How do you get in? Let's say there's 2 or 3 of you and you're the mastermind of this. And I would tell this to my guys in brief and say, think about that. How would you do it? How would you be the most effective? I'd give them a few minutes to think about it. We'd listen to their plans, and a lot of times they'd have a similar plan because there was an obvious answer. But if they have 1 or 2 plans, we would sit down there and say, okay, now reverse roll that. Now you're the good guys. You're us in real life tonight. If they have that plan, now you think about how you're going to stop it most effectively, the quickest. Being the most effective is to preserve life and stop evil. How do you do that? And we would literally sit down with literal army men, like the toy army men on a map. Or we take bullets out of our magazines, 9mm and 45 for good guys and bad guys. And we'd literally war game it and say, okay, how do you stop that? How do you stop that threat? But use that in your life. Think about that. Think about how your property, your house, your family is vulnerable. And then how can you fix that? And realize ultimately, like we talked about, first and foremost, we're Christians. My God is my shield. Psalm 91, or at least part of it, I shall not be afraid of the terror by night, nor the arrow that flies by day. And a biblical verse that ties in well for today. In God's law it is written, if a thief is caught breaking in and is struck so that he dies, there shall be no guilt for his bloodshed. If the sun has risen on him, there shall be guilt for his bloodshed. My wife actually had a tactical tip to recommend. It's a book that she liked, and to be fair, I haven't read this, but I obviously trust my wife. And it's called The Gift of Fear. Gavin de Becker. If you're looking for a good read. And I'm going to shout out a little tactical tip. If this whole episode wasn't for you, you've listened the whole way through for whatever reason, my wife is getting ready to hike the Arizona Trail. It's some 800 miles long, and we're going through packing stuff this week, and she was kind enough to let me help her with that. Sometimes, as you can imagine from the name of this podcast, I'm going to be a little bit domineering. But thankfully, she was open to suggestions. I know there's all kinds of camp stoves and propane stoves and all different kind of fuel stoves on the market. But what I suggested to her was just hexamine tablets. And they even make them that come in these little foldable, like super small metal stoves that don't weigh very much at all. You can put them in your pocket, depending on the size of your pocket. They have a lot of hexamine tablets, which are super concentrated fuel. You don't need a fancy stove. It's just a little hexamine tablets, and it comes in like a metal case that folds that you can make into a stove. Now, you're not going to roast a whole lamb with these, but you could certainly make coffee, boil some water for some oatmeal or some soup or whatever. Boil some water, make it clean to drink. So just the little hexamine tablets and the little foldable hexamine tablet stoves. They're super light, super handy. You can also supplement those in most environments, like one hexamine tablet and some little twigs or sticks or buffalo chips or whatever you have. With that, guys, thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.